specifically, what was the moment? I think everybody has that type of that moment or that story of when you realized you were burnt out with your career specifically. Go ahead, Summer.
I can go. So I didn't really have one moment. I feel like there were a lot of times kind of building up to it where I just realized I wasn't totally doing exactly what I wanted to do every day. And COVID happened and I lost my job. And in a panic, I got another job doing marketing, and it was way more social media heavy. And it was a little bit different than some of the more technical stuff I was doing in the previous job. And throughout the probably like 5 months that I worked in that second job that I got in a panic, I just started to get so burnt out. I was doing something I truly didn't like. And but I was learning to design a couple websites as well. And so I started to think like there's other things that I could be spending my time on. And why am I sitting here all day, every day doing something I don't like? And so that was kind of the moment. It took me a while to realize it, but yeah, and also kind of having the Sunday scaries every day before going to work, that is a pretty good sign that you're burnt out.
Fantastic point. Yeah, I like to think that you should. For me personally, there's not every single day I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, like I'm jumping into this. But if you're scared the night before, you have that Sunday scaries type of feeling, then that's typically a pretty good sign that you're not excited about what you're going to get up and spend the entirety of your day doing. So, great point. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can answer this one.
Sure.
So I'm Kaitlin. I was with the first Learn cohort, and I'm a tech lead at a company called Tempest. It's an online sobriety platform. And before Learn, I was a humanities academic, and I followed the advice of do what you love. I loved books. I loved writing. And that was horrible advice for me. By the time I was looking at PhD programs, I hated writing. I never wanted to read another book again. I was so burnt out on everything that I had initially really loved about the whole field. And I was very ready to do something very, very different. And that's kind of where Learn came in.
Awesome. Thanks, Kaitlin. What about Greg?
Yeah, for me, I think the moment that I realized I was burnt out from my job before Learn was this moment. It was a couple days before the holiday break, and I had just pitched a few marketing tactics that we could use for our website. And, it got into this whole conversation about, oh, maybe we need a new website. These features can't be added, this, and that. And at that time, I had a concept of what HTML and maybe CSS was, but that was about it. Like I could write a line of HTML to make things look potentially a little bit better, but that was the extent of it. Like I could change text. That was it. So it was very frustrating to have a conversation about technology where a majority of the people weren't technical. And so after that, the team had come back with a bunch of ideas that we could use to create a new website, perhaps, or even a new landing page to make things a lot easier. And they wanted to pass the project to me, and I realized I just didn't want to do it anymore. Like this was not where I wanted to go. I didn't really want to be a marketer that was kind of just sort of messing around with HTML and CSS and JavaScript or any other functionality that was needed. I really wanted to learn more. And it was very frustrating for me not to have had the training to be able to understand how websites work in general. And so one of the things I did is a few weeks later, I just decided that was it and I quit. And I let people know. I gave people the 2 weeks notice and everything like that, but I quit and I took 8 months off, and I slept on a friend's couch for 8 months. And so that kind of kept bills really nice and simple. And at the same time, like I just would go to my local grocery store and get some cereal and eat that for most of the day, which is probably not the healthiest thing to do, but it was a good time to just kind of take a step back and realize that, hey, maybe there were other things that I wanted to do and other things I wanted to try. And I needed to do some research on my own time to figure out what that was. But at the same time, I also just needed to take a rest. I needed to sleep a few days. I remember the first week after I had left my job, I think I slept, a total of 10 hours each day. And it was kind of nice. It was kind of relieving just to get my footing back on. And I didn't it's funny with burnout, you kind of don't realize that you are exhausted. And you don't necessarily realize that it's happening in the moment until you take a step back and you realize, oh, wait a second, there are things that maybe I'm not feeling so good with at the moment. And it takes some time to start to realize that too.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. For me personally, anytime I've experienced burnout, I haven't really noticed it until I've gone on vacation or had a holiday weekend, and I was like, oh, I feel really refreshed from not having worked one extra day. So little things like that are definitely good indicators. What about you, Gina?
So for me, it was less about the type of work I was doing than it was the company and the environment that I was in. So I kind of realized it was a period of time that was just really difficult personally. I was in the hospital with my then boyfriend, now husband's father, who had cancer, and he passed away. And throughout that period, my company was like, when are you coming in? When are you coming back? Bombarding me with questions. And then the day after he passed, and I was texting them the whole time, in communication with them, they kind of gave me a hard time about missing that day to kind of make arrangements and support my husband and his stepmom and everything. And I just sort of realized I didn't want to be at a company like that ever again. I didn't want to work for or be in a position where I was so, I guess, just expected to be so available and didn't have any kind of boundaries, wasn't allowed to set any kind of boundaries like that for my personal life. And it still took me a few years after that to figure out how I could get out of that type of position and have a career that would allow me to set those boundaries. But yeah, so I would say definitely you can like the work that you're doing even and just realize that you need to change it up for a whole variety of reasons.